normal circulation. So circulation, it is related to transportation of digested food, hormones, and enzyme to the cell. It also removes waste from the cell, and it also facilitates the exchange of gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide to the lungs. So cardiovascular system consists of heart, blood, and blood vessels. First, the heart pumps the blood which articulate throughout the body through the blood vessels. So along the way, nutrients and other substances are being delivered to body tissues, and waste are being removed to be excreted out from the body. So fish only have one atrium and one ventricle. Amphibians have two atria and one common ventricle where oxygenated and deoxygenated blood mix. In mammals and in birds, there is a complete separation of the four chambers of the heart by a tissue called septum.
Human circulatory system. Heart, the pumping organ. The human heart has the size of the clenched fist. It is located in the chest region between lung cavities known as pericardial cavity. In addition, heart is divided into two, the upper and the lower chamber. The upper chamber is called atrium or auricles. This chamber has a thin walls because it only receives blood from the outside of the heart, while the lower chamber, also called as ventricles, has a thicker wall because the ventricles is highly muscular and it needs strength to pump blood. The blood that is carrying waste material returns to the right corner of the heart through the veins. This blood is being taken to the lungs where carbon dioxide is given up and the oxygen is taken in. Heartbeat. Heart can beat 27 times per minute and can pump for about 3 liters of blood. The heartbeat uses muscles called atrial and ventricular muscles. Contraction of heart muscles is called systole and the relaxation period is called diastole. The one who is responsible for pumping blood of the heart is called blood pressure. When the systole muscle contracts, the blood pressure increases. When the relaxation occurs, the blood pressure decreases. The normal blood pressure for the young adults has a systolic number of 120 mm of mercury, and the diastolic has a pressure of 80 mm of mercury, and this blood pressure can be expressed as 120/80. This is how the heart looks like, and this one is how the heart looks like when it is pumping blood. This one is what we call pericardial cavity, and this is atrium or auricles. And this one is ventricles.
Blood vessels are the channels to transport blood throughout your body to your body's organs and tissues. They require oxygen and nutrients to function, which are supplied by the blood. Waste products and carbon dioxide are also carried away from your organs and tissues by blood vessels. Now, there are three kinds of blood vessels: arteries, veins, and capillaries, and each of these plays a very specific role in the circulation process, which I am going to talk about. The first kind of blood vessels I'm going to talk about is the artery. So arteries are vessels that transport oxygenated blood away from the heart. They are tough on the outside, but inside they have a smooth layer of epithelial cells that allows blood to flow freely. Arteries also have a strong muscular middle layer that aids in the circulation of blood throughout the body. The second is the capillaries. Capillaries are the blood vessels that connect the arteries to the veins. The arteries transport oxygen-rich blood to the capillaries, where the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. The waste-rich blood is then delivered by the capillaries to the veins for transport back to the lungs and heart. Veins transport blood back to the heart. They resemble arteries but are not as strong or as thick. Veins, unlike arteries, have valves that ensure blood flows in only one direction. Now you might be wondering, why does arteries don't have valves? Well, to answer that question, arteries do not require or have valves because the pressure from the heart is so strong that blood can only flow in one direction. Lastly, valves also assist blood in traveling back to the heart against gravity. Now we're going to talk about the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is a network of tissues, vessels, and organs that work together to move a colorless, watery fluid called lymph back into your circulatory system or your bloodstream. The lymphatic system, lymph nodes, and lymph vessels, supports the circulatory system by draining excess fluids and proteins from tissues back into the bloodstream, thereby preventing tissue swelling. Now, aside from the function shown on the screen, I would like to add 3 more. Lymphatic system maintains fluid levels in your body. It protects your body against foreign invaders, and it transports and removes waste products and abnormal cells from the lymph. Lymph nodes filter substances that travel through the lymphatic fluid, and they contain lymphocytes or white blood cells that help the body fight infection and disease.
Blood corpuscles, or better known as red blood cells, they function to deliver oxygen to the tissues in our body. The oxygen turns into energy and your tissues release the carbon dioxide. The red blood cells also transport carbon dioxide to the lungs when we exhale. So they first begin their lives as stem cells, and they soon mature into 3 different types of cells: RBCs, WBCs, and platelets.
There are 3 types of blood: RBC, WBC, and platelets. First, let's talk about RBC, which is the red blood cells. Red blood cells transfer oxygen to the body's cell via hemoglobin, an iron-rich molecule that easily combines with oxygen. The amount of red blood cells per cubic millimeter is 5.5 million. Next is the white blood cells. White blood cells' principal role is to battle infectious pathogens that infiltrate the body. Phagocytosis is the mechanism through which they absorb the invading agents. They are white due to a lack of hemoglobin. Some are made in bone marrow, while others are made in the spleen, thymus gland, and tonsils. Normally, human blood has 8,000 white blood cells per cubic millimeter, but this can increase to as much as 20,000 to 30,000 cells per cubic millimeter upon damage. Lastly is the blood platelets. Blood platelets are fragments of some large cells generated in the bone marrow, not full cells. The quantity of blood platelets per cubic millimeter is around 300,000, and the blood platelet has a lifespan of about a week. They play a key role in the initiation of the blood clotting process. Aside from blood platelets, the body requires vitamin K, which is required for the synthesis of prothrombin, a kind of plasma protein. A lack of vitamin K and blood platelets can result in uncontrollable bleeding known as hemorrhage during an injury.
So, daily exercise. The purpose of an exercise program is to prepare a person to effectively respond to physical or emotional stress. Rapid heart rate during stress is checked if the heart through the regular exercise is trained to slow down, thus allowing for the low systemic blood pressure and less oxygen requirement. Exercise also allows the small blood vessels to take over the function of supplying blood and oxygen to the heart should the main coronary artery develop a clot. Moreover, exercise increases the patient's breathing capacity, enhances metabolic function, and improves kidney excretion. Best results are obtained through maintaining the regular workout 1 to 3 hours a week.
Blood transport. Under the microscope, this conducting tissue seems to be a mass when examined in cross-section. The xylem and phloem are used by a plant to carry food, water, and minerals through its system. These tissues maintain a steady supply of organic materials for the formation of buds, roots, and other plant components via active transport. Plant transport involves absorption of water through the roots and up and down movement of substance in phloem. Absorption of water plus macronutrients and micronutrients through the root system is possible by diffusion. Root hairs increase the surface area of transport. Water molecules pass through the epidermis, cortex, endodermis, and pericycle. Then they move upwards by means of xylem vessels.
Photosynthesis products, water, and other molecules are transported up and down the plant's body by phloem cells. Companion cells provide support and nutrition to phloem tissues. There are 2 main theories for how chemicals travel up and down the plant's body. First, ascent of xylem sap is explained as push from below by the water molecules pushing upwards through xylem vessels. It can also be described as pull from above by a combination of transpiration, or also known as evaporation of water from the plant's body, and cohesion of water molecules through hydrogen bonds. The second is there is a source cell and a sink cell in a pressure flow or bulk flow plant. Photosynthesis takes place in a source cells and nutrients are required in a sink cell. Phloem tissues transport things up and down in this manner. Source cells are unmistakable in leaf cells.
Plant transport. Under the microscope, these conducting tissues seem to be a mass when examined in cross-section. The xylem and phloem are used by the plant to carry food, water, and minerals through its systems. These tissues maintain a steady supply of organic materials for the formation of buds, roots, and other plant components via active transport. Under the microscope, these conducting tissues seem to be a mass when examined in cross-section. Absorption. Water molecules pass through the epidermis, cortex, endodermis, and pericycle, then they move upwards by means of xylem vessels. Absorption of water plus micronutrients and micronutrients through the root system is possible by diffusion. Photosynthesis. Products, water, and other molecules are transported up and down the plant's body by phloem cells. Growing tall gives plants huge advantages, like access to more sunlight, but it also brings huge challenges. How this towering tree gets water from the ground up to its leaves seems an extraordinary feat of engineering. Plants have simple system of tubes that carry water and food around the plant. The xylem and phloem. Xylem and phloem, towards the outside of the stem, are the phloem tubes. Smaller than the width of a hair, they're packed closely together and around the whole length of the plant. Each tube is made of living cells joined end to end, forming a continuous tube. Their thin walls are perforated like a sieve to allow sugars beneath the leaves to flow to all the other parts of the plant. Flowing living cells transport food from leaves. For the inside the stem is the xylem dead cells that form a hollow tube. Water and minerals are drawn up inside these tubes from the roots to the leaves. Xylem, phloem, living cells transport food from leaves. Further inside the stem is the xylem dead cells that form a hollow tube. Water and minerals are drawn up inside these tubes from the roots to the leaves. Xylem dead cells transport water from roots to leaves. But how does this happen? Deep underground, root hair cells project in the soil seeking moisture. Because the inside of the cells contains less water, in the soil solution water moves into the root hair cells by osmosis and towards the xylem and the root. Osmosis moves from high to low concentration, but once in the xylem, another force comes into play. It's generated right at the top of the plant. Transpiration, the evaporation of water from leaves. Transpiration, 90% of water from roots lost through leaves. As water leaves the leaf cells, more water is drawn out of the xylem to replace it. And because it forms a continuous tube, the hollow xylem acts like a thin drinking straw, sucking water from the roots. So the secret to how water can move upwards is that it's pulled, not pushed. The powerful suction force generated by transpiration can draw water to the tops of the tallest trees.